Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 27th of April. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm delighted to say we're joined for the first time this week by Chris Jack. How are we getting on, Chris?
Not too bad, Derek. Another interesting and busy week leading into an interesting and busy weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Not half, indeed. Right, folks, you know the drill by now. Before we talk all things Rangers, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Seneca Hair Restoration, the #1 hair transplant group in Europe. And as ever, I've bunged the all-important links in the description box. Also, the offer we have on just now, I've been mentioning it for the last week or so. It ends at just before midnight tonight, so now is the time to take advantage of it. Not only do you get 2 months of the Rangers Review for just 50 pence, but you can also enter a draw for a personalised tour of Ibrox 4-4 with a club legend at the beginning of May. It's a cracking deal. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. But as I mentioned, it ends a minute before midnight this evening, I believe it is. So make sure you head over and take advantage of that before it ends. Right, Chris, lots to talk about. Firstly, a report that, I mean, we're now entering into the transfer rumours. They are abound, with Rangers set to overhaul the squad in the summer. Jack Butland was mooted as a potential incoming player a couple of days ago. I've seen Kieran Dowell of Norwich City also mooted. Today I see that Chris Willock of QPR has also been linked with a move north. And this is an interesting one because when Michael Beale was appointed as manager, we spoke to someone down at QPR, and he says it would not be a surprise to see Chris Willock move up there in either January or the summertime. He has worked with Neil Banfield when he was coming through the ranks at Arsenal. Of course, worked with Michael Beale at QPR for that 6 month, 6 month period down at Loftus Road as well. Very highly rated down there. Chris, he's one of a number that's going to be linked from here on in, but he's certainly a player that comes quite highly rated. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him pitch up at Ibrox.
As you say, Derek, it's going to be a very hectic summer in terms of names and transfer links, both in and out. When you look at the work that's needing done, there's going to be a lot of names bandied around. We'll also try our best to get to the bottom of all of them if we can. Yeah. The Willock one, his name's been doing the rounds for a couple of weeks. I think as he just explained there, it ticks a lot of boxes. He fills an area of the team that potentially will need filling. He's of a good age, a good profile, bit of championship experience, and as the manager said a fortnight ago, I think it was now, he will look to try and recruit players that he knows that he's worked with, just to always minimise the risk. That's something that's obviously been successful across the city over the last couple of seasons. So it's not a surprise. I think that the manager's going to go down that route of, here's guys that I know what I'm getting on the pitch, but also know what I'm getting off the park in terms of their character and the mentality and how they're going to slot into the team and slot into the dressing room. So I wouldn't be surprised if this one is one that does progress, and if Chris Willock does become a Rangers player.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in. Let's get to a few of them. Pardon me. SH says, Willock, a no-brainer, but hopefully not too many more championship-level players. We must go further afield, and that's echoed by Graham Mitchell. He says, morning, lads. Is it a worry we're just looking in England? As you mentioned, Chris, it was an interesting point that Michael Beale did touch on. I think it was just prior to the St Mirren game when he said that you'll be able to identify the links of the lads that are going to be joining the club in the summer. It was an interesting bit of information that he gave away. But what do you make of this? The concerns from supporters that they are just looking down south. Would you like to see them cast their net wider, or will they be doing that behind the scenes, do you think?
I'm sure they will be. I'm sure there's no market that they've completely ruled out. Signing championship players, I think it's okay in one or two cases. It's not something I'd like to see, not a process I'd like to see completed in terms of the entire squad rebuild. Championship players come with a premium in terms of their wages and their fees, mostly because of the level of that league, but also how close they are to the Premier League. So you have to pay a bit more for them. I just think trying to build a Champions League competitive team out of second-tier English players, which is in effect what they are, becomes a wee bit tricky. So I think that there will be gems that you can get out of there. I think Cantwell looks good. By all accounts, Willock looks good and could be a decent addition. Jack Bolton, we also had I had a line on him at the start of the week as well. I think they all have a similar, they all have a profile that suits, and you can see the reason behind it. But if you then go and try and basically fill the team with guys from that league, I think Rangers would be making a mistake there. You'd like to think they would be able to cast their net a wee bit wider than that, and with the scouting structure that's there now overseen by John Park, you'd like to think there would be an unknown that they can go and pluck from Scandinavia or somewhere in Europe or maybe even South America if they can go down the Alfredo route as well. So I don't think they would rule out any market. But it's like I said earlier on, I think it's, if they do go down the English route quite a lot, it's probably just a case of the manager wanting to mitigate and try and reduce the risks as much as possible, because he knows these players, he knows what they like to say on and off the pitch. I think it'd just be him playing a wee bit safe, because ultimately if you go and sign half a dozen guys from Europe and they don't settle in, you're then looking at a resale value issue as well. Whereas if you sign a Championship player, doesn't quite work out up here, you'll still be able to sell him back to the Championship without any major headache. So I think it'll be a case of Rangers looking to do a lot of deals, and they have to get a huge number of those deals right. You're talking what 90% of the deals have to be right if they're going to challenge next year. So I think it's a case of being adventurous when they can, but probably just playing it a wee bit safe in terms of the guys that come in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Morgs gets in touch. Morning Bears from the Gold Coast, Australia. Big job for Michael Beale getting the new team to gel in time for the Champions League qualifiers and the start of the season. There's an interesting point made by Matthew. Only problem with Willock to QPR not have a year's extension. I think they do have an option. It ends in the summer. I believe they do have an option there, but certainly as a player that has been linked with Rangers heavily, and the link is there, as I mentioned. Neil Banfield did work with him, as did Michael Beale at QPR, so that's one to keep an eye on. Lots of other comments coming in. This is an interesting one from Kev Armstrong. Chris, morning lads. Cholak has a new agent. Can we assume he's been told he can leave? That's what I asked them, I think when we had Stevie and Johnny on a couple of days ago. I asked them if they felt that Antonio Cholak would be part of the squad next season. For me, personal opinion, I would like to have him around. I think he's useful. His goals to games ratio is pretty good. However, there are a lot of supporters that feel a parting of the ways may be the best way forward. Where do you sit on that, Chris? And should we look too much into the fact that he's changed agent?
On the agent point, I wouldn't have thought so. I'm sure his former agent was more than capable of getting him a move, because he has been on the move quite a lot over the last few years of his career. So I wouldn't read too much into that. In terms of his future, I think it's quite a tricky one. I do like Cholak. He's a smashing big guy. I think he gets it. He's settled into the club and the squad well. His form in the first half of the season, well, he was the only recognised striker at times, was hugely important to Rangers, and it's been a bad season, but think how bad it could have been if he hadn't come in and been able to score the goals that he did do in the first half of the season. I've long thought, though, since the manager came in, I don't see Cholak being the type of striker that Michael Beale builds a forward line around. I don't think he's quick enough, strong enough, scores enough goals. But that sounds, if I'm being quite harsh on him, but I think he's got a role to play in a squad. But I also think they could probably do better. I think he's come in, he's done a job. I just don't see him being the type of guy that Michael really wants to build a team around. I think that whether Cholak does stay or go, there's going to have to be another striker coming in. Or Alfredo will leave. Rangers need to go and find a talisman, target man, somebody that is going to be the focal point of a side in the same way that Alfredo has been over the last 5-6 seasons. I don't think that man is Antonio Cholak. It then comes down to whether Antonio is happy to be second fiddle to a guy that there's going to be money spent on, that's going to be one of the headline buys of the summer. I think he'll find his chances limited. He's not going to be in the same situation where Alfredo's gone off for a couple of weeks and has chucked it for a couple of weeks, and he can then come in and take his chance. I think it's going to be harder for him to get game time next season, and it ultimately comes down to how much game time he's going to be comfortable with, and how big a part the manager feels he can actually play in those limited appearances.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I like him. I think he can do a job, especially at Ibrox, against teams that play with that low block, that come and just set their stall up. He's finishing he's probably the best finisher at the club. I know Kemar Roof might have something to say about that, but we've not seen enough of Kemar Roof really to gloat about, really. Just when you say that they will be bringing in forwards, I think they need to bring in about 4, Chris, about 2 strikers and 2 forward players. Would you agree with that? I'm thinking Kemar Roof, who knows when we'll see him back in the range. And if ever, Alfredo Morelos is for the off. If Cholak leaves as well, you're talking about Ryan Kent possibly departing. Rangers need at least 4 in that area for me.
You're potentially looking at somebody to play off the left, somebody to play off the right, and at least two strikers. I think that's, out of all the areas of the side, I think that's something that will take a lot of priority for Rangers this summer. Again, Michael Beale mentioned after the Aberdeen game at the weekend about the number of chances they do create, but the number of goals they score. And Pittodrie almost summed up so many things that have been wrong this season. Rangers just don't take enough of the chances that they create. And those big moments like Sakala at the weekend, if that goes in, Rangers potentially go in and win the game. And there's been moments like that all throughout the season. They've been on top, they've created loads of chances, and even the games when they have scored 2, 3s and 4s under Michael Beale, it could have been double that on every occasion. So I think that will really frustrate him, and I think that will be a really key area for him to try and address. I think we can write off Alfredo in terms of his contract. I think we can write off Kemar Roof almost, unfortunately, in terms of his fitness. Even if Antonio stays, I think you could probably do better than him. So an interesting few weeks ahead, because that Rangers forward line has Alfredo as the talisman, as the ever present for the last few seasons now, and it's going to have a very different look about it going into the new season.
Yeah, Denzel says, I agree that we require a talisman striker, but where is he coming from? Yeah, it's an interesting one. They cost money, as you say, Chris, as well. They don't come cheap. So it's certainly, if you want quality, you're going to have to spend a bit of cash. Ross McDonald taking issue with my Kemar Roof chat. Says, Derek, not seen enough of Roof, top scorer in the 55 season. Come on, yellow card. That was a long time ago now, Ross. Unfortunately, it seems a lot has happened since then, and Rangers are hopefully getting back to a title-winning squad that Michael Beale is hoping to construct. Let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in here. Congratulations, incidentally, this ties in with the comment to Stuart McCall for helping guide Sheffield United back into the Premier League last night. Fantastic achievement for him, and Paul Heckingbottom as well. I've always rated him, watched him as a coach when he was at Barnsley. Never quite happened for him at Leeds United or at Hibs, of course, but he's worked wonders at Bramall Lane. CGM55 says, notice Sheffield United got promoted last night. Surely that rules out McBurney or even Fleck coming to us. The Dykes rumours are worrying as well, he says. Seems every transfer window that Ollie McBurney has been linked with Rangers. Chris, of course, we know he's a Rangers fan. I think you want to play in the Premier League, in all honesty. John Fleck, likewise, although you never know. And Big West Foderingham as well in goals for the Blades. Good to see them all getting promoted to the Premier League. McBurney or Fleck for you, or Lyndon Dykes is a player that's been linked as well. Are those players that excite you?
Dykes, no. McBurney, maybe. Fleck, yes. It would be the short answer. I think West Foderingham, I think we can rule out Big West making a comeback. As you say, there's barely a transfer window goes by where McBurney and Fleck aren't linked. Whether it's them or not, I do think Rangers will need to address the Scottish contingent of the squad. So those two certainly tick boxes in that regard. I think that's something they will have to look at. If you potentially lose McGregor, probably Scott Arfield, maybe Ryan Jack, depending on contract. It doesn't leave that many guys who tick the UEFA boxes as a homegrown players in that squad. So whether it's McBurney and Fleck or not, I do think it's a route that Rangers will have to go down at some point, just to kind of boost those numbers a wee bit. I know on Stuart McCall, one of the games good guys, spoke to him last week to do a piece on the CSKA game 92-93 and got an FA Cup preview out of him at 8:15 in the morning as well, as he was on his drive into training. An absolute gentleman, and they're great to see him back and doing so well.
Yeah, absolute class. Stuart McCall, a Rangers legend, and great to see him doing the biz down there at Sheffield United. Wish them all the best next season. Lots of comments coming in regards to McBurney, and it's fair to say that they're not all positive. None of the comments coming in saying that looking for him at Ibrox in the summer, that's for sure. Let's get to a few of the comments. This is an interesting one. David Blythe raises a point. Derek, I'll put this to you. For all of this season has been a disaster. If we won 4 of the 5 games in the split, we would finish on 91 points. We've not had a return like that much in recent times. Ifs and buts, if Rangers do that, David. However, if they do finish on 91 points, it's irrelevant at the end of the day, Chris, because when you're playing in Scotland, you need to be first. Second is nowhere, as the famous saying goes. So as much as it's might be a decent points haul, it means very little, doesn't it?
You're not going to be raising the "we finished on 91 points" trophy while Celtic are parading their treble round about Glasgow a couple of weeks. Hopefully that's not the case, and Rangers can do something about that this weekend. But that is one of the kind of quirks of this season. You look at the run of form that Rangers have put together under Michael Beale since he came in, and been able to go and win at Easter Road, be able to go and win at Pittodrie that first time at Tynecastle so impressively, come through the tricky ones at Livy and Kelly, come through the Ibrox games, not with a lot of style at times, but just tick these games off and win them relatively comfortably. They are doing everything that should be asked of them. But ultimately, it comes down to cup games at Hampden and Old Firm games. If you don't win them, nothing else matters. You could finish on 100 points. If Celtic finish on 101, the season's not been a success, and it's been a write-off. If you don't win cup finals against them, and you don't win semi-finals like this weekend against them, nothing else matters. And I think that for the guys that are maybe new to the squad, or the guys that will come in over the summer, that should really lay it out in black and white, just what you're signing up for here, just what Glasgow and what Scottish football's all about. Beating St Mirren 5-2 a couple of weeks ago, great on the day, ultimately means nothing if you don't go and win the title. Your season is built on wins over Kelly and St Johnstone and Livy, but your season is defined by the Old Firm games and the cup games.
Yeah, Tim Sharp says going to need over 100 next year to win the league. I think that the gap between Rangers and Celtic and the rest at the moment, I don't think has been as big for quite some time, Chris. It really is quite something, isn't it? And it's one of those ones where I think next season the Old Firm games may have a big say on who wins the title. So it's the games against your likes of Ross Counties, Motherwells and what have you. They should take care of themselves, but the Old Firm games take on extra significance.
I think that's why Sunday up at Pittodrie was such a bad result for Rangers, because that's the type of game that next season they can't throw one of them in every 7, 8, 9 weeks, because it will cost them the league. And I think that's why this Sunday coming is such an important one for Michael Beale. He has to show that he can beat Celtic. He can't go into next season having lost 2 games at Hampden against them, lost the Premiership game at Parkhead that mattered, not been able to win the Ibrox game in January that mattered, and the last one of the season, well, it's obviously not irrelevant and it means something. It's not really the kind of laying down of a marker if you go and win the last Old Firm game when the season's gone and Celtic have won a treble. That's not the big game. He has to prove that he can beat them in a big game, just to give himself and the players that are going to be there next season, give them something just to kind of build on heading into next year. Because as you say, Derek, going to Pittodrie and going to Easter Road and Tynecastle before, you say, it's a tricky, we're being on a good run, we can maybe take a point here just to keep the unbeaten run going. Dropping a couple of points 2-3 times a season at these venues will cost you the title next season, unless you then go and somehow win 4 Old Firm games and get yourself that bit of a cushion, which I don't think will happen. So it's going to be a really, really tight one next year. And any mistakes Celtic have shown they will capitalise on them, because they're in that kind of ruthless and relentless manner that Rangers were in during 55, where you just tick off these games week after week. The big games come around and you win them as well, and that's the type of thing that's going to be required next season.
Yeah, totally agree. Right, there's an interesting point here from Maka. He says, morning all, excited by the news of the names mentioned and boardroom changes. Chris, do you expect the board to outline their plans after Sunday? Of course, this was the big news during the week that James Bisgrove is stepping up to become the club's CEO. Stuart Robertson will depart as managing director at the end of July. We've got a new chairman, of course, now, and John Bennett. I think it's likely that we'll hear from him after Sunday as opposed to before, Chris, but certainly changes afoot behind the scenes.
It makes no sense for John or for James Bisgrove to say too much or to say anything at all apart from the statement the other day there on any matters on or off the pitch. It makes no sense to do it before Sunday, because you're then just making promises that 11 guys you have no control over might not be able to deliver on. So I think Rangers will see how the dust settles a wee bit after the Old Firm game was. If it goes well, everybody will be on a high and they'll be keen to hear plans and hear from everybody involved. If it goes badly, I think they might take a wee bit more time, but there will be something over the next 2-3 weeks, I would think, where John Bennett and James Bisgrove can set out their stall, almost set out their vision of the future and how they see Rangers going forward. And I think the good thing for the fans and from ourselves in the media perspective, I think communication is going to be at the heart of that. I think that's something at various levels and various situations at various times the club haven't been good enough at over the last 3 seasons or so, certainly during 55 and Seville. I think the last couple of months, certainly in a match day, in terms of pressers, pre and post match, and just generally dealing with the club, it has become a bit easier. And I think that's certainly improving. Hopefully that continues, and I'm sure it will after the changes at that particular level. Changes at chief exec level now with James Bisgrove coming into that new position. Also changes at the top of the boardroom with John Bennett, and I think it's a really exciting time. Now people will have their decision, their views on whether these guys are the right people to take the club forward. Yeah. In the eyes of many, they might be tainted by association, given how the last couple of seasons have gone. But I think you have to give both John and James a chance to go and prove themselves. It's now their chance to really put their stamp on the club from a business perspective. It's their chance to put a stamp on the club in a football perspective. Also, working closely with Michael Beale and John Park in the football department. So I think it's really interesting heading into next season. Hoping that it's going to be a bit more open and the club are going to be a bit more willing to come forward. I know that's something that John and James are really keen on. So I know that it has been time for change, as the banners have said over the weekend or over the last few weeks. Sorry, that change has now come. I think it's only fair, give these guys time to actually go and prove themselves and show what they can do for Rangers.
Yeah, interesting times are afoot, that's for sure. Right, let's get to a few more of the comments here. First of all, just on Michael Beale and those Old Firm games, Kev Armstrong raises an interesting point. Wee Dick had to wait until his 4th Old Firm game for his first win, I'm sure, May 99. Oh, what a glorious afternoon that was at Parkhead when Rangers won the title. And you're absolutely right. I think that the first Old Firm game was a goalless draw at Ibrox, then Celtic won 5-1, I'm sure, at Parkhead, and there was a 2-2 draw at Ibrox after that, and then you're absolutely right. Rangers beat Celtic to win the title, then they beat them in the Scottish Cup shortly after. So who knows? It might be a good omen for Michael Beale. Let's hope so. Come Sunday when they lock horns at Hampden. And just on Hampden, I want to get your point, your view on this, Chris. Ross raises an interesting one. Can either of you see Suter playing next to Goldson on Sunday? Of course, Connor Goldson's missed the last couple of weeks with an injury. There is hope that he will return for Sunday. I think every Rangers supporter is hoping that, crossing toes and fingers, that he is back for that one, because the defence has looked ropey in the last 3 games, 7 goals conceded. It's important, I think, that Goldson comes back. And for me, I agree with Ross, Chris. I think I would look to play Suter as opposed to Ben Davies, who looks a bit short of confidence at the moment.
It was a point I made in my coverage up at Pittodrie at the weekend, saying that Beale has key decisions to make, but probably not that many of them, because Kent and Goldson, if they're fit, come back into the team. The rest of it probably picks itself, given injuries and form. I think the one thing he has to really decide is who partners Connor Goldson. if Connor is fit and, as you say, fingers and everything else crossed that he is, I wouldn't be averse at all to seeing John Souttar come in and play alongside him. I think the last couple of weeks, Ben Davies really hasn't impressed. He's looked a bit soft, looked a bit short of confidence, as you say. And against that Celtic attack, when you really have to be on it every single minute of the game, I just think he's got these lapses and these silly mistakes in it. He also made the mistake at Parkhead. And there's a couple against St Mirren when Curtis Main nearly scored in the Ibrox game. I thought Pataudry, it's just like silly things. If you just stick to doing the basics of clearing your lines and not trying to overcomplicate it, I think he could be fine. But against that Celtic attack, you'd be you're much more confident, if you can ever be confident, if Conor Goldson comes back in. And I think Souttar over the last couple of weeks, he's been steady enough. He's not been spectacular, but I think he's been okay. I thought he played better than Davies in the Parkhead game. He's got a couple of games under his belt now, so fitness shouldn't be an issue. He should be able to get through 90 or 120 minutes at Hampden, hopefully. So I think that's probably the key selection call that Michael Beale has to make. I think he'll probably go Ben Davies. If it was me, I would go John Souttar.
Yeah, and there's lots of comments coming saying, would you play a back three, Rangers on tour? We play a three at the back and put a man on Kyogo. Scott Hammond says, how comfortable is Souttar playing on the left side? I know he was asked about that in a recent press conference, and it was one of those responses. He says wherever the manager asks him to play, he'll play there. But I can understand there is a bit of anxiety about John Souttar playing on that left-hand side. Just anxiety in general about the Rangers backline, because it has looked gettable of late. And against Celtic as well, Chris, you just have nightmares of that ball being whipped in across the face, don't you? And players being caught on their heels. It's happened so often, and you just hope it doesn't happen again on Sunday.
As I said to someone, was a chat with one of the press guys the other day there after Aberdeen, and said, how many times have you seen Rangers concede the goal, cross from the right, scored at the left? And the Celtic have got a few of them of their own. So I think if Rangers are going to win the game, I don't see them keeping a clean sheet. They have to try and keep it to one. If Celtic score twice, I find it hard to see how Rangers win the game. If they can keep it at one, I think they give themselves a chance, but it's whether they're capable of doing that, because the Celtic attack is very good, it's very potent. There's lots of speed, there's energy, there's movement. They're those guys that are up at the top end of the back are really hard to track. And if Rangers aren't on it, if they're not concentrated for the full 90 minutes, it doesn't bode that well. No matter what they do in the middle of the pitch, no matter what they do going forward in terms of they can try and also take a few more of the chances they create. You just have those worries about how Rangers are going to cope at the other end.
Yeah. At the other end, Gordon Rose raises a point. His front three would be Kent, Sakala and Matondo. Go with pace, he says. That's an interesting one. Morelos, for me, it was anonymous pretty much. He had a decent chance against Aberdeen. He did well, good technique from him. That Clarkson did well to defend. That aside, he did very little, Chris. Antonio Cholak, we touched upon, doesn't seem fancied. I think he's been out with an injury anyway. It doesn't leave many options up top. I know young Zach Lovelace was on the bench, and I would love to see him get game time for the final 5 games of the season. But for this game on Sunday, do you think Morelos gets the nod up top? And who plays on the wings? You said there Ryan Kent. I think he does come back into the side, even though he himself hasn't been in form. I don't think I would play Matondo on the right-hand side. I don't think that necessarily has worked. But who's your front three?
Can we get Joe Aribo back up the road to play as the false nine again? It worked to an extent last year, because our Rangers are going into the business end of the season without a striker almost 2 successive seasons. As you say, Derek, I thought Alfredo was distinctly average at the weekend, has been for quite some time. The only hope is that he thinks, well, this is my last chance, this is my last Old Firm, this is my last chance to get a medal. Hopefully he's tuned in and switched on. If he is, we all know what he can do. It's just whether he can suddenly turn it on and raise the levels from where he has been. I think Kent plays unless he's a huge fitness doubt, which by the way the manager has been speaking over the last couple of weeks, doesn't seem like it will be. So I think Kent comes back in. I think Sakala plays because there's not many other options. Matondo, I don't see him being anywhere near it. When he was fully fit at the start of the season, I wasn't overly impressed. since he's come back in, I've not been overly impressed. I don't see how you. I think if you're getting to the stage of you're saying like Rabbi Matondo is now you're the ace in the pack that you can spring a surprise on Celtic, it probably sums up where this team squad and season actually are. I'd be amazed if he gets the. I think he'll probably be in the squad as he has been for the last couple of weeks, but I'd be amazed if he's one of the guys that the manager puts too much faith in from the start. So for me, it's Morelos, Ken, and Sakala, and hope for the best.
Yeah, hope for the best indeed. Chip Buller says, get Ariwo back up the road and Bassey back across the water. Oh, I'd love to have Big Calvin at the back as well. I think that would sort that left-hand side of the defence out. But listen, it's going to be a tough ask for Rangers on Sunday, but it's up to Michael Beale and the players to step up and do the business. Hopefully it's here about one last hurrah, as they say, last chance to really cementing the legacies as Rangers players. I think whoever wins this semi-final, there'll be odds on to go on and lift the trophy. Let's hope that Rangers can retain it. Big thank you to Chris. Just before we go, Kenny says, is the presser today or tomorrow, Derek? It's tomorrow, Kenny, when Michael Beale and a Rangers player will talk to us in the assembled press. So you'll have all the reaction, all the fallout on the website and on our social media channels. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And just a quick reminder as well, if you want to take advantage of the website, that offer ends at midnight tonight. 50 pence for 2 months worth of content, and you can also enter a draw for 4 for a tour of Ibrox with a club legend. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. Right, big thanks to Chris and everyone for interacting with the show as ever. It's much appreciated. We'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Bye for now.